Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 20th January 2024. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Hardan, 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 Haribol, TSV Nectar, NECTAR, Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been trying to discuss the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been trying to do in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous, present, and future videos. So let us continue with the topic of discussion for today's video. Before proceeding with this discussion, I wanted to make an unconditional apology for an error that I made inadvertently in yesterday's video. I inadvertently misspelled that the pawns, the pimp, and the pork butcher who was shot in his stomach fingered at Roland Legrand as the person who shot him in the stomach. I was wrong. Actually, the name of this victim himself was Roland Legrand. He pointed his finger at a genuine underworld figure known as Papillon Roger, who he claimed to have been a police informer. This was one inadvertent error for which I unconditionally apologize. However, to proceed with the story, we all know by now that there is one person or there was one person called Henry Sherrier who wrote an autobiographical book called Papillon, in which he claimed to have been a person in the Paris underworld called Papillon, but whose name was wrongly changed by the conniving police of Paris at the time to Papillon Roger, and the shooting in the stomach of Roland Legrand was pinned on Papillon Roger. A few weeks after the shooting, the same Roland Legrand, the victim of the shooting, died in the hospital. As a result of this, the same Parisian police arrested this man called Henry Charrier alias Papillon and pinned this murder on him, and they arrested him from a place called District of Seine, which is prohibited to underworld gangsters who have already been convicted. Henry Charrier alias Papillon was sentenced to life imprisonment for this very murder, and he was deported to the penal settlements of France called French Guiana in the far west near the Caribbean, where he was supposed to spend his whole life as a convict. However, 13 years after the imprisonment and the conviction, Papillon, alias Henry Charrier, escaped to Venezuela, where he did some business which was destroyed during an earthquake, as a result of which he wrote this book about his own autobiography during his spare time. This book became such a raging international hit that the Parisian public revolted against the Parisian police, and after a lot of protests, the penal settlements of the French Guiana for the prisoners was closed permanently. This Henry Charrier died in the year 1974 at the age of 67. After his death, one Parisian common citizen who was working in an old people's home came across a 95-year-old man who was an inmate in the same old people's home. This man claimed to have been a French soldier during the First World War, and he said that after the war was over and when he was in France again, he committed the murder of a gamekeeper, and he was convicted for the same murder to life imprisonment in the same penal settlement in French Guiana during the same period when Henry Charrier was convicted and was spending his time there. Now, this old 95-year-old man claimed that his nickname in the Paris underworld was indeed Papillon. This common man who was working in the old people's home was surprised to see that this old man was reciting verbatim all those cases about what happened to him during his lifetime, which were already mentioned in the book called Papillon, written by the now dead Henry Sherrier. So there was no one to confirm who was right, especially this 95-year-old man. This guy claimed that he had been released from the penal settlement after it was closed down, brought back to Paris, and he was lodged in this old people's nursing home. This common man was very intrigued to hear these stories. This 95-year-old man looked like he was at best semi literate, and there could not have been any chance of his reading that autobiographical book called Papillon, written by Henry Sherrier. When he said this to a press reporter, down that man went to the same old people's home to investigate this matter. It was only later that this man could confirm that this 95-year-old man was indeed Papillon, and that Henry Sherrier was none other than Papillon Roger. It was a fact that that man or that victim called Roland Leguin had indeed told the Parisian underworld that this man, who was actually called Henry Sherrier, but who had a nickname as Papillon Roger, was a genuine police informer. In other words, it was a fact that this Henry Sherrier alias Papillon Roger had indeed shot Roland Leguin in his stomach to warn him against telling this to the Parisian underworld. Now we will take a detour. As I mentioned in my earlier video yesterday, there is one category of human living entities, especially male, who actually belong to the 75% vegetative multitude in this society. However, they get attracted to the 20% dark negative forces of this material world, and yet they lack the sanguine courage and the determination or purpose in life of all those genuine gangsters who become a member of this bracket of 20%. In such a case, these human living entities have no other goal but to try to balance themselves in two boats at the same time. That is precisely the reason that such living entities behind themselves in the border between the 75% vegetative kind to which they originally belonged and to the 20% population in the society who have a negative attraction and purpose in life to make it big in the dark negative forces of the material world. In such a case, these people who are in what is known as twilight zone or fringe of the dark negative forces are forsaken by the 75% and forgotten by the 20% negative forces or vice versa. They are forgotten by the 75% multitude and forsaken by the 20% multitude of dark negative forces. In such a case, such people find themselves in a catch 22 situation. They are neither welcome in the 75% bracket nor are they accepted by the 20% bracket. Many of the professional informers in any underworld belong to such a category. These are people who do not have the guts, intelligence, cunning, or planning of a genuine gangster to commit any crime. Yet they hang around their own heroes in that underworld, hanging at every word that those people spoke. And such people, such guys from the fringe, are duly exploited by the police who knows their actual nature and it tries to make the maximum mileage out of their stupidity, ignorance, and short sightedness. These people are leaned on by the same police for information about all the genuine crimes and criminals of the dark negative forces. Here, I would like to mention that we have to talk about where the person called Roland Legrand and this person called Papillon Roger stood. This Roland Legrand listened mostly to his etheric body of senses and vibrations, and because of this, he began his life as a pimp for his own girlfriend and wife. We all know about a chakra in our body called Swadhisthana chakra. Swadhisthana in Sanskrit means delicious. Lust is very delicious, and sex is equal to lust. This particular chakra this particular habit is controlled by the same Swadhisthana chakra. And so, because this Swadhisthana chakra of Roland Legrand was imbalanced, he worked gleefully as an unscrupulous pimp. Probably during his life as a pimp, he catered to the services of genuine underworld figures. At that time, he probably also thought about trying to make maximum mileage out of his own unenviable position as a pimp soliciting customers in the underworld for his own girlfriend. Now we will talk about Henry Sherrier. Henry Sherrier also probably belonged to the same fringe. However, it seems that he was a wee bit more courageous and deadly than the same Roland Legrand. That is probably the reason that he had a direct access to several of the gangsters of the Parisian underworld during his period. This Papillon Rocher, being in the fringe, was promptly arrested for small misdemeanors by the same Parisian police who knew his actual status as a fringe player, and they promptly leaned upon him to make him their own star informer. Papillon Roger alias Henry Fitzgerald did not like this one bit, but he had no other go but to play along to survive. Here he was sailing on two opposite direction boats. One was as an informer for the police, and one as a person who was trying to become a gangster. This irritated him no end, but he had no other go. Yonder came another player from the fringe called Roland Legrand, who found out quickly that this guy who wanted to have a life or a charmed life as a gangster was actually a police informer. To curry favors with the genuine underworld guys, he began spreading rumors among the Parisian underworld that a guy who he knew as Papillon Roger was actually a police informer. This angered the actual Papillon Roger, who was none other than Henry Sherrier, the author of that particular book. In his anger, he went and shot Roland Legrand once in his stomach to warn him against spreading such rumors. When Roland Legrand was rushed to the hospital, the police were horrified to find that his claim that the person who shot him was none other than their own star informer Paris Papillon Roger was indeed true. This irritated the police also. Now they were in the catch 22 situation. Neither could they convict Papillon Rocher for this shooting, nor could they protect this guy who they wanted to protect, but they were helpless. Unfortunately, Roland Legrand died of his wounds a few days later. The police got very wild. They caught the same Papillon Roger, gave him a thorough dressing down, and then they sent him as their own star informer in the same French Guiana prison penal settlement that they were handling during that period. This Papillon Roger gleefully went there and had a charmed life as the Parisian and the penal settlement police force as their blue-eyed boy. Papillon Roger had an uncanny ability to tell stories. His actual name in the penal settlement was not only Papillon Rocher but also Papillon and Henri Charrier. The underworld did not know that he was an informer. So, what this man did was that he took up a job in the penal settlement as a cesspit man, and then, after completing his early hour duties as a cesspit man, hung around the genuine gangsters and convicts of the penal settlement and tried to glean the maximum information from their gossip. This he promptly tipped off to the police in the penal settlement. This helped him have a more charmed life than what the other convicts enjoyed in that penal settlement. 13 years after informing them, the same police got enough of this man's information, and it was the police which released Henry Charrier permanently. Henry Charrier, alias Papillon Rocher, had paid his dues to the law in Paris and the penal settlement. After this, 13 years later, he fled to a country called Venezuela in Central America, where he set up his own business in a place called Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela. Here, this guy worked incognito as Papillon or Pappy as he was called in the same underworld for around 20 years. This is all I wanted to talk about in this particular video about the case history or case study of a man whose actual name was Henry Sherrier, but who went around as Papillon in the Parisian underworld. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular subject. Please give me your own expert views, thoughts, ideas, and opinions so that I may blend everything together for the sake of the society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.